Now, let's talk a little bit about some Xbox stuff because yesterday, at the time I'm recording this podcast, okay, Xbox had their business update podcast, which is the Xbox podcast that they do every single week. But this one was a little bit more special and more important for people because it was hyped up for many different reasons. The big thing here, I'll read some of the actual posts here from Xbox. After the podcast went live, they shared some of this stuff. But basically, Xbox is keeping our promise to bring more games to more players around the world. With an incredible year of major releases like Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Avowed, Ara, Towerborn, and more, 2024 is going to be great for Xbox players around the world, and we can't wait to see you in June. Which I should say, they had a couple announcements during their business podcast, okay? Number one, there's an Xbox showcase happening in June, which is like their E3 presentation like they always do every single year. Number two, they have Diablo 4 coming to Xbox Game Pass, which I feel like was probably one of the bigger announcements that was actually like new that nobody really thought of, but now that's happening, okay, which is fine. I don't have to get it on PlayStation 5. I can play it through Game Pass if I have Game Pass. Not a big deal, right? Some people will like that. Some people don't care. It is what it is. And then finally, number three, which is the biggest thing, which they talked about first before all of that, was that there are 4 Xbox exclusives that are going to other platforms. Now, originally, the big hubbubaloo about all this stuff was that Xbox was going to get out of the console business and that they were going to go full third party. Clearly not the case. The other thing, too, is that people thought and were talking about and discussing about other Xbox third parties or Xbox exclusives going third party to other platforms like Switch and like PlayStation 5. That seems to be the case, but not with the titles that people were throwing around. People were saying that Starfield was going to be one, Indiana Jones, Blade. There was talk about even Master Chief Collection jumping over to like PlayStation 5 or something. There was a whole bunch of stuff, and they were coming from people that are invested in the Xbox ecosystem or people that just really talk about Xbox. It was all over the place, right? Everybody was freaking out. People were wilding out. You had Xbox fans that were turning in their consoles to GameStop. It was ridiculous, okay? Which I'll get into in a bit, but basically the 4 games that are coming that they did not say during the podcast. Phil Spencer talked about this, and, you know, I think it was stupid not to just say the games, but he said, at least in his reasoning, he wants those studios and those platforms to actually reveal it, or pretty much the developers to reveal it when they're going to actually do so. And I thought it was dumb, but here are the 4 games that people are already speculating or talking about from various different sources. Grounded, Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, and what was the other one? Pentiment. Sorry, Pentiment. So Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Pentiment are those 4 games. Now, Phil did describe them a little bit, and a lot of this is also based on some of the leaks that came beforehand for like the last week or so, including the big data mine leak from Hi-Fi Rush, which showed images of like outfits for the character that are based on different platforms, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, PC, etc. And I get that. And they're not big games like, you know, the marquee like Xbox games, but they're games that are kind of like smaller that they could just throw elsewhere and see how things go. I would argue, even with the exception of maybe Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, you know, games like Grounded and even Pentiment are just kind of like almost nothing burgers for a lot of people, because you got people that play those games, but it's not to the extent of some of these other ones, and it definitely not to the popularity as well. And for me personally, having watched all of this, seeing everybody while out over the last week or two, this whole podcast felt like a big meh to me. It was like not that much of a huge deal. Like, it felt like people were whiling out for no reason. Everybody was hyping this up as supposed to be some major earth-shattering, ground-shaking type of thing, and it really wasn't that. I think a lot of the rumors and a lot of the speculation, which also to the detriment of Microsoft's own actions or Xbox's own actions, where they just didn't clear things up early enough. They really just kind of let everybody seethe with all the chatter that was going on. And I thought that was a bad move. But still, all these expectations and all this stuff really just kind of came to a head. And at the reveal of this, it just was very disappointing. Like, I didn't want something bad to happen to Xbox. Like, obviously I have an Xbox Series S, I have Game Pass, I play games on Xbox all the time like I do on PlayStation, and I don't care about what games go where because I have all the platforms and I could play whatever anytime that I want. The problem is, though, is that you have these people that just get so caught up on the console war debates and the console conflicts of stuff that it makes everybody look stupid. And I think sometimes out of the big 3, really Xbox is the one that really almost really adds fuel to that fire sometimes. You never really hear about that from PlayStation or especially Nintendo. Nintendo really doesn't engage in stuff like that with that type of part of the fandom or of their fandom or their customer base. You know, you have Nintendo fanboys that while out over everything, but you're not seeing Nintendo go in there and really kind of like stroke those fires. They kind of just stick to themselves. They do what they're going to do and everybody follows suit. You even see the same thing with PlayStation, even though they're part of a lot of the bigger debates with Xbox fans. You know, those fan bases are always constantly at battle. You're not really seeing PlayStation like executives going out and like, you know, doing stuff or making statements or talking with certain creators or media people to really start getting people into that frenzy. It really doesn't happen like that. And Xbox is the one that I usually see often that happens with that, you know, between Phil Spencer talking to some random media person or some people on an Xbox podcast bragging about how they had dinner with Phil Spencer or Aaron Greenberg or Sarah Bond or any of these people, you know, going to events, you know, being buddy, being friends on Xbox. I feel like it's ridiculous. It's a little stupid. And a lot of that gets thrown in with all these rumors and speculation until we get to what we had over the last week leading up to this. And it was, to me, it's dumb. I was always of the mindset of a wait and see approach with a lot of this news coming out, because if something big were to happen where Xbox was never going to be doing stuff for an Xbox console anymore and put their games on other platforms, I would be fine with it. I would be totally fine with it, not because I want anything to happen to Xbox for that to go away, but again, I have access to all this stuff, so I'm good. Like, it won't affect me as a consumer other than the fact that I have to get games in a different way or a different platform other than what I was doing before. So those are my thoughts on it. I feel like, again, everybody really wilded out for no reason. Like I scroll down, I look at some of these other statements and stuff. Hey, look, I even talk about here with Xbox. As we begin to fulfill our promise to offer Activision Blizzard games with Game Pass, we're happy to share Diablo 4 will be available on Game Pass on console and PC on March 28th. Which, by the way, Phil Spencer, I believe, or Sarah Bond, I can't remember which one it was, they actually mentioned that this will be kind of like the start, and more than likely, you know, down the line, more Activision Blizzard games will be coming to Game Pass, which the big one for everybody would be Call of Duty. Like, at some point, I think we're going to see Call of Duty on Game Pass, and especially a new Call of Duty. I would not put it past them to find a way to do that. So, again, a lot of weird things going on with this whole debacle. Everybody needs to chill. Everybody needs to calm down. Everybody needs to relax in some way, because y'all are too quick to say that the sky is falling for any little reason. It's like Nintendo Directs. That's the other thing too. Everybody was speculating that the Nintendo Direct that everybody's been talking about at the time I'm recording this was supposed to happen that same day, and they moved it because something big was going to come from the Xbox podcast. It was like, Jesus Christ. Will everybody relax? Everybody chill. Just chill for a second, man. Anyway, those are my thoughts about it. Let me know some of your thoughts about this down below in the comment section. Do you agree with me that everybody was wilding out for no reason? Do you disagree? Do you feel like there's still more going on? And I should mention too, I say everything that I've said up to this point with the caveat or the asterisk that things can change. Because I still believe, and I even said this on Twitter, that there's probably other information about many of the things being discussed that we just don't have, that we just aren't privy to. There's probably a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I've seen other places from media and other journalists with sources basically saying like, look, there's been a lot of weird things and back and forth going on, a lot of debate and arguments back and forth behind the scenes at Xbox. I totally believe that, especially over the last like 2 weeks, right? But I say all this stuff with the caveat that things can change. Things could probably change, and we could be having an entirely different conversation or an entirely different outlook on all this stuff going down. But that's where I'm going to leave it for now. Like I said, leave a comment down below with your thoughts about everything. Leave a like on this video if you can, whether you agree or disagree with me. And yeah, hopefully Xbox fans could chill right now. And if you probably did get your console over to, to GameStop? Did you trade in and stuff? Hopefully you could go back and get it and take this massive L over here. Hold on to this for a bit.